A little bit darker today, but this is the darkest of ops. It's not fun being me. Okay, don't envy me. Don't be jealous of the stuff that I have or what I've accomplished or of how I look in my body. Again, I've worked for almost everything. Don't be jealous of my life. Uh, my family is fractured, and I feel like they're not even my family anymore. There's this atomized demoralization campaign. It's not like some grand conspiracy. It's a culmination of years of social engineering and trying to create gods amongst men through genetic engineering, actually. And we saw the first release with the mRNA vaccines and CRISPR gene editing, which has recently moved past the cockroach. How Kafkaesque. Now, I went to see my doctor today. Well, he wasn't always my GP, but this is the way it is. He's the longest. I've known this doctor for about 20 years, and obviously I'll keep his name out of it for his and his family's sake, because I trust him, and I hope he trusts me, because he's the one that has obviously all the records of and notes of me having serious long-term depression, and especially seasonally. And I've never ever taken an antidepressant or mood stabilizing pharmaceutical. And as they would say, you're just as smart as you always were, and you look like you're 20, look and act like you're 20 years old again. And 20 or 21 years old, yeah, I would say so, because I'm tired of self-censorship. And I'm tired of having to deal with this bullshit of this propaganda mill that is assaulting, not only, okay, with a bit of drama, a bit of melodrama, not only assaulting my psyche, but the entire culture, okay? The entire culture. So, yeah, I look at these things in the military, and I've mentioned this before, and a lot of other smart people are noticing this too. But obviously, these institutions were assaulted by the cultural Marxism, and destroyed by jealousy, envy, greed, gluttony, lust. 7 deadly sins. Sloth, laziness. And I'm guilty of some of these things too, trying to, because I just after about 7 years of dealing with people, I just didn't want to have to deal with people anymore. Again, people don't give credit to cadets as to what kind of skills that they have and what we give them. And it's again, I'll give credit where it's due. Without the Canadian Forces and without cadets, I wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't be here. Without scouts, I would not be here. It's just the plain and simple truth. Loyalty is hard to earn and easy to lose, just like respect. And the respect and the loyalty to the opposite sex has been absolutely decimated. Right? We're punishing the wrong people here for crimes that are set into motion by very rich people, who don't start out as evil, but then they end up being so. And what is evil? Evil is whatever gets in the way of reproduction, in my opinion, or creation. And I've mentioned this in bits and bytes at times. And okay, so the Air Force, the U.S. Air Force is going, and we just had a panel. Let's look at here. Well, Let's see. Hey, on. Okay. So I'm in one of these NCO groups, and I think they find some comedy out of my existence in the group. So where is it? A better quality of life, right? But what is a better quality of life? I can't, I don't know the state of these bases, and I'd have to I would want to go and witness it myself, a grand tour, so to speak. And I know the officer corps, the higher ups, the brass, they go and they do the inspections, right? The unit inspections to see how things are. But that doesn't mean they know how it is to experience day-to-day life unless they were previously posted there. Let's see. And like again, I'll state this for the record. I don't make a lot of money on this government subsidy, right? It's this is the example. This is $693 a month, right? Which isn't enough. It's not enough. They sent me a pamphlet for veterans, but I ain't doing that. I'm not a veteran. I don't have discharge papers. I don't. I don't identify as a civilian, but I'm not a veteran. So like I'm looking at this from the outside, and as a like a watchdog should, or at least an NGO, an advocate. I don't know if I like that. Because there's a lot of animosity and anger built up in the younger generations because we're not getting laid. That's the pure and simple truth. The erosion of trust, and then burn culture, the bullying, which is then it's compounded by social justice, vigilantism. These loosely organized terrorist organizations, quite frankly, because they became more than just revolutionaries at this point. And the article that I read today was that for the first time in history, that millennials, so people like me, outnumber the boomers, at least within Canada. And so my generation, will bring the change, right? We'll bring the change because we have the largest number of people, and we'll be supported by Gen Xers, honestly, and Gen Zers, because we're all fucking tired of this fucking bullshit and all of these things that get in the way of getting laid. It used to be so simple, and now with all these middlemen, blah 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 blah. And with the increasing usage of technology, you have a decrease in intelligence. That's figuratively speaking. And I said something in anger to like the executive director of the Canadian Police Chief Association in which I said that women don't make good police officers, and I'll justify this by saying that women are more vulnerable to emotional exploitation, whether they want to admit that or not. So the susceptibility to psychopathic or sociopathic exploitation for the advantage of the man is reason enough to not put women in the front line for such a thing. I got no problem with women being, mental health cops uh, or agents or whatever. But like as far as like the day-to-day patrolmanship, no, I'm not supporting that right now. Because of the infection, the mind virus of the politics of the day. And until those people come to terms with the fact that they were taken, and it was all done for disaster capitalism. And I wonder if Naomi Klein will back me up on this, because disaster capitalism is exactly what happens with the sandbox wars in Halliburton. And so that the historical pretext for everything that's happening right now, and this snowballing effect or this pressure cooker that's about to blow its top, because no one seems to want to de-escalate or listen to reason. It's becoming as it was, say, with Kenosha, with those protests, is that all of a sudden it may just come down to something violent, or say like the misuse of abuses of power with the emergency acts, emergency measures act with the freedom rallies in Ottawa, because they wouldn't move, they wouldn't budge. It's a real quagmire. Like, okay, so young people are going to live more like our great grandparents than our parents. And they'll dematerialize, or at least they will let go, right? The art of the simple art, or say simple life of having very little. The minimalism, right? Because just it's not worth it anymore. It's just not worth it anymore. The social experiment and the observations that happened during COVID for such a reason are exactly what would happen thereafter, because so many jobs in the market are useless. And this is why it's communism is an eventuality, in which you have centrally planned economy, and you have a lot of people that are doing a job that might otherwise be less labor intensive, but at least it gives them something to do, right? The grand projects, or like the New Deal, right? What was it? The New Deal. The deal. Roosevelt. So this is where the military is going to come into play, in equipping all of these people, because that's the only choice, because otherwise we will just rot and die. We'll just wither on the vine. There's so many people that don't have a reason to live, and the wolf is at the door. So just like the Second World War, almost everybody was in the military or some sort of civil service in support of the war program. And the external pressures that North America and Europe has been feeling because of this grand globalist experiment, again, trying to achieve an Übermensch, so to speak, or a superiority of genetics, a purity, whatever you want to call it, manifest destiny of my children. I want to plan my bloodline for the next 15 generations, sort of thing. And if people fuck it up, I'm gonna shoot them in the head. These obsessive things with legacy and lineage, which we leave behind. These monuments, these glass ziggurats. Is it's delusional. There's no guarantee that stuff is going to stick around. But what does stick around is how you touch other people's lives and what kind of influence you have on them. And that's true power, right? And again, it's very, very easy to become corruptible. And it's so much easier to corrupt them. So again, the living standards, the panel, I can't find it. Oh, well, let's see. I'll just look it up on Google. So the military panel on living standards. All right, HASC, New House Armed Services Panel will focus on quality of life. And this is why I was so irate with the GBA and GBA Plus, is because it has this toxic outlook and conception of men, quite frankly. And okay, so here's something like this. Ask the question to Google. So Google, again, I call into question the belief systems of the people, because the belief systems influence the things that we make and the institutions that we build and the rules and legislation that we put into play. So this is a misconception, right? But I'm skeptical of this because of how it actually plays out in Israel. So the matrilineal principle in Judaism does not mean Judaism is matriarchal, let alone feminist. Judaism is patriarchal as are all other monotheistic religions. As all other monotheistic genealogy indeed is determined by the father regarding all categories except the most important, whether a child is Jewish in the first place. So when you have this conflict that goes back to even grudge matches, and then you have these slings and arrows of technology intervening with reproductive selection, then that's evil. It's evil. And the same goes for, again, I've mentioned this before. I used the example of my neighbor down the way in the complex, who's they're a Muslim couple, and they have like 7 children. 7. And then my neighbors here, 3 children, which is fine. That's reasonable. 2 under the age of 10, and then 1's in her teenage years. And so then that establishes like a second generation Canadian thing. And we have every right to, I'm not going to say nationalist idealism, but again, I've said this in the history of propaganda, that white supremacy is Jewish supremacy, and there's no denying that anymore. There isn't. Hitler was half Jewish. Hitler instituted National Socialism, which is Ashkenazi, right? Nazi means Ashkenazi. So all of this bullshit that's put into the culture that ignores, and only concentrates on the revenge against German people and revenge against European culture. But why are we seeking revenge? Why are we supporting this now? Well, why do we hold this grudge even still? 23 years after 9/11. It is seriously disappointing. And again, where does the money come from for these social movements? And every one of these social movements, again, influences the belief systems and the constitutional character that is a person under the eyes of the law, right? So what's the definition of a person? Person means an individual or a body corporate, trust, partnership, fund, or an unincorporated association or organization. And Canadian means an individual who is citizen within the meaning of the Citizenship Acts. This is from lawinsider.com/dictionary. Or a body corporate formed under the laws of Canada or a Canadian province. Okay, so what is the definition of a corporation? An incorporation. It's a new legal entity called a corporation. In Canada, a corporation has the same rights as a person. This is right off of Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada. This is the federal incorporation. So this is by these means, right? Yeah, okay. So if a business fails, fine. We don't take the person down with them. But when the incorporation is then made into, say, a nonprofit, or it is behind a social movement, it then becomes a for-profit entity. Federal incorporation costs $200. Every time I had $200 to do this, I had other priorities like gasoline or eating. Because people, again, a lot of people think that or have this conception that I'm a millionaire, and I'm not. Like I'm not gonna dig up my parents' finances at this time, or anyone else in my family that is much better off than I am. And it's this multi-generational wealth transfer that is causing so much anxiety. Not just for the parents, but for people of my generation, because there's so many of us that are saddled with debt, with student debt, and saddled with mortgages and other, or refinancing, whatever, car loans, the debt load. Let's look at the debt load of people within. So debt load ratio of millennials. So this is from the Financial Post. Debt-ridden millennials face biggest pain if economy sours. National debt to disposable income ratio in the first quarter of this year. So this is off the Financial Post again. August 28th, 2023. I gotta love coincidences. Debt levels of younger generations are staggering. Pamela Heaven. So this is where the mistrust comes from, because people don't want to join the military, is that the military is a governmental entity, and so then people place blame and make the military into a punching bag, quite frankly. And I can't speak for people that are in ranks right now. I am so far removed, so forgive me for my ignorance, okay? Um, Again, this may change. I may end up in a uniform all over again. You either seize the day, or you just let life pass you by. So rise to the occasion, right? Indebted Canadians between the age of 35 and 44 have a debt to disposable income ratio of 250% in 2019, much heavier than the debt load they carried a decade before, when it was 150%, she said. That translates into $2.50 in debt for every dollar of disposable income. So here's the thing with my finances, and because of the student loans and whatever else, I work for the government. And I work for the government just as much as you do. But you know who doesn't work for the government? It's the people that receive the grants and then don't have to pay them back. Those people are slaves. It's the exact opposite of what we think it is. Because money don't mean shit. Money does not mean shit. This is why younger people that are involved in cryptocurrency or silver trading, the concept comes from 4chan, which is the suicide stack, right? Like, you worked your entire life for this, and then you can lose it in the blink of an eye, like that, or all of a sudden it doesn't have any value anymore. It doesn't have any convertible, equity to a fiat currency, and then you put it into something else, say like art, or you put it into a house, or a really expensive car, right? A really nice car that holds its value for a long time. Then the inherent value of something, the inherent cultural value and the emotional value to younger people is greater than anything else. The emotional attachment is greater because they've lived through such turmoil and upheaval and disruption of the family unit. And I think about this, if I had the chance, and because just some things just weren't going the way that I wanted to in my family, and sometimes I think about what would my life have been if I had emancipated myself, and I started working on my art full time. Say as 17 years old, I made a different choice, joined the reserves, maybe gone to Afghanistan and set myself up for life with a pension after 12 years. But it doesn't mean it would have been better. But it's still interesting to think about. Military quality of life. So again, this is from house.gov. Because again, people don't give respect to especially the far left, right? They don't want to give respect. They want to tear down. They want to destroy. But the reflection is in the mirror, right? The destruction then projected outwards is then to reflect what the inner state of mind of the person. Now, State of Mind is a really good video game, by the way. I really enjoyed it. All right. Well, I'll keep this under a half hour for all you higher ups, and I hope you feel that I'm not trying to be getting in your way. Just some sort of Dudley do right, because I don't want to be that. I really don't. I want to see the best, not just for me and people of my generation, but for everyone else. And if we gotta bust some caps to do that, and we gotta kill people to do that, then we'll fucking do it. Hoorah! Or sorry about it. Hoorah! You see, everybody's got a weapon. And the greatest weapon that we have right now in 2024 is this human network and what's between these ears. So don't forget that. Thank you. I love you. And may we see each other soon. You know? Thanks.